Today we're going to demonstrate how to do an oil change and check the oil suction screen on a 2008 Diamond DA40XLS. This is a Lycoming 180 horsepower engine. Step one is to release all the quick connect on the top cowling. One trick that we always use is to put masking tape over the back edge of the spinner, because the fit between the top cowling and that spinner is very tight, and so taking the top cowling off, but especially putting that top cowling back on, it's very easy to be able to scratch that spinner, especially if it's painted. It's easiest to pull from the front first, and it's also helpful to be able to slightly raise the windscreen. One nice feature of the Diamond DA40 is the quick release inside the right inlet in the lower cowling for the scat tubing that goes to the heater box and to the battery box. Just a quick connect for the scat tubing.
Is there one on that side? Nope, just this side.
And we'll ever be.
I just have to feed it over the exhaust. Step one of the oil change is to drain the old oil. This has a quick disconnect, which is really handy. All you do is push up and turn to lock, and it starts draining the oil. Next step is midstream is to take a good oil sample for oil analysis. This one's going to Blackstone. You don't want to get the early sample because obviously you have debris in the bottom of the oil pan, and once you take your sample, you can then finish draining the balance of the oil. While the engine oil drains, we're using a little trick here to be able to avoid oil drippage from the filter. Usually with this rear placed filter, when you start to spin that off, as soon as the seal breaks, it will drip oil all down the firewall, and if you have the bottom cowling in place, it will drip all over that. But what we do is we take a piece of 1-inch angle iron, this is aluminum actually, and we slide it right up underneath the edge of the oil filter in the back of the engine, and we cable tie it to the top release, or quick release for the bottom cowling. And so what happens with that is when you cut your safety wire and you start to unscrew the oil filter, as soon as that seal breaks, the oil will drip down into the channel iron and into the bucket that we're going to place there as soon as we get done draining here. And that will keep you from creating a mess inside your engine compartment. So Tim's just cut the safety wire on the filter, and 1 inch, right, on the socket?
Yes.
Yeah, so we take a 1 inch box end wrench and gradually loosen the oil filter. You're gonna Tim, you're going to want a bucket under that edge of that angle iron.
Okay, yeah, I got you. I was
Just getting it loose.
Yeah.
Good. So with our second bucket in place, Tim's going to break the seal on the oil filter. And here comes our oil right down the channel there. Oil filter holds normally probably about half a pint of oil, and so we definitely want to let that start to drain before we go to remove it. So the other trick to not making a mess on this oil change is to slide a baggie over the oil filter from the back side, so that when you unscrew it, it catches any excess or any remaining oil in the filter. So Tim's sliding that all the way around from the back toward the front. And then he'll unspin the filter. There it goes. Nice, clean extraction. Before we reinstall the oil filter here, we want to wipe the mating surface for the oil filter with a shop rag. Make sure that that's nice and clean. Now we have a nice clean mating surface. We just put the new oil filter right back onto the engine and screw it until it is just finger tight. Tim's calibrating the torque wrench. We're at 16 to 18 foot-pounds on the Tempest oil filter. Tim's taking his box end wrench and turning about 3/4 until then we're going to use the torque wrench now to measure 16 to 18 foot-pounds. One thing to note, it's important to write date, tack hours, and tail number on your filter. Hopefully everyone knows where to find their tack hours. It's in the lower right-hand corner of the engine page on your MFD. Tim's got a nice extension for his torque wrench, much easier to use than mine. Is it enough?
That's a question.
It's a tight squeeze, and definitely don't want to run around the corners on the X nut on the filter, because then it's really fun getting it off the next time. One very nice feature of the Diamond DA40XLS is the quick release on the scat tubing. This quick release is just below the right inlet for the lower cowling, and once you release that, it's easy to pop off the lower cowling, and that allows you to be able to move that out of the way very easily. Last thing on the oil filter is doing the safety wire. You string your safety wire through the boss right below it. Sorry, right in front of it. Measure out plenty of wire. Give your tool a spin. Thread it through one of the 3 mounting holes. It should be on the side that toward the left side of the aircraft to be able to avoid it unspinning. If you hook it through a hole on the other side, it'll actually work the filter loose. And once you have it threaded, you twist again, the main. Then you cut the edge and bend the end of the wire back toward the mounting hole on the oil filter. The last thing we're going to do on the engine is to check the oil screen. If the screen, the suction screen, isn't always removed, but it's here on the back of the engine, and it's safety wired in, so it's a little tricky to get to. First step on the screen is to cut the safety wire and remove. It's really tricky to get to between the back of the engine and the firewall. The only way to get to it is from underneath. So Tim's now unscrewing the bolt that holds in the suction screen. And here comes some oil. Have to be careful about the dripping oil, as the outlet for the power flow exhaust system is right there, and that creates a smoky mess if you get oil on it. And here's the suction screen removed. If you're looking for certainly any large particles in the suction screen, a lot of videos online of big chunks of metal that can get caught in the screen, but this one looks pretty clean. I'm not mistaken. Tim, does that look pretty clean to you?
It's pretty clean. A little bit of sludge, but not much.
Okay, we're going to probably clean that out with some mineral spirits and just double check that there's nothing magnetic in there. So Tim's going to soak the screen in some avgas just to be able to clean it up and help us remove any loose particles. How's it looking, Tim?
I got a little stubborn one that doesn't come out.
Okay. Luckily for me, looks like the screen looks pretty darn clean. A little bit of debris inside, but no big chunks indicating any kind of cam spalling or any other bearing issues. Unfortunately, while Tim was cleaning the suction screen, another A&P was cutting the filter open, so I missed that on video, but it's pretty straightforward. There is a Tempest filter cutting tool that I use. There are cheaper ones that are available, but it easily accommodates the male threads that are on the IO360 engine. After cutting open the oil filter, closely examine the filter material, looking for certainly any kind of metallic chunks, any kind of debris, any kind of foreign matter.
Can't really
One
see.
of the tricks once you cut the oil filter open and remove the filter material is to squeeze the accordion filter material in a vise to be able to remove excess oil so that you can easily see any kind of metallic on the filter material itself. So far so good, Rob?
So far so good. Little.
Tim's now reinserting the section screen and the retaining bolt and the brand new crush washer. Crush washers need to be replaced every time, and Lycoming has an interesting spec on this. There's no torque spec for this retaining bolt. You actually screw it until it's finger tight and then turn it 135 degrees. And just before buttoning it back up, we'll fill it up with 7 quarts of Aeroshell 15W50. Normally I don't like to run my plane with more oil than 6 quarts on the dipstick, but you have to refill the oil filter as well. So 7 quarts puts me just a little bit over the 6 mark. Any more than that and the oil just gets spit out the breather tube all over the belly.
Yeah, mine's in.
There we go.
And reinserting the bottom column. Gotta be really careful not to scrape the prop covers really well. Just have to be careful again not to scratch the spring because you're trying to fit it in as a tight fit.
Clamp this on.
Reattaching the one quick connect for the scat tubing. replacing the top cowling is a little bit tricky because it's tight fit again between the spinner and the seal. And so it's a nice little trick is just to go wedge the canopy open just a little bit. And we're all buttoned up. One complete oil change.
Alright, we good enough? I can go ahead and start yanking the tape, right?
Yeah.
Just a few last notes. A really important final step in doing an oil change is doing a leak test. Basically, you want to run the engine up to 2400 RPM for several minutes and then shut it down and double check that you've got no leaks. In this case, I actually did. I usually take a look up through the opening in the bottom cowling where the vent tubes come down, and I could actually see a streak of oil down the bottom of the lower cowling. And so we popped the top cowling back off, and we had to snap the quick drain a couple of times to be able to get it to fully seal. That's a common thing with these quick drains when you're draining out the bottom of the oil pan and you have debris coming through there. Sometimes a little bit of debris will settle in the seal, and you need to snap that quick drain a few times to be able to try to dislodge any kind of foreign debris that's causing it to just slightly leak. I usually change my own oil. The reason I did not change my own oil in this particular case is I wanted to be able to be free to video. The other thing is I don't usually like to do my own suction screen. It's very difficult to get to. It's a very dirty job, and frankly I'd rather pay somebody else to be able to do that. Lastly, it's really important to be able to send that oil sample off for analysis. I use Blackstone, and one reason that I really wanted to do the screen on this oil sample was because I had slightly elevated copper at my annual in August, and so I'm out of abundance of caution. I want to continue to check that screen a little bit more frequently to ensure that I don't have any type of excess wear that's being caught by the screen before it actually comes to the oil filter. Anyway, hope this video was helpful, and it's not a difficult thing to do, easily way to save money, and frankly I like to do as much work as I can on my own airplane because I like to know that it's done right. Happy flying!